welcome to the Bruce channel. I'm Bruce, and we've got a full boat today. So grab your coffee, kick back, and we'll get right into it. We'll start with this. Facebook has recently, well, for me it's recent, in many ways I remain a Facebook dolt, but on my Facebook timeline something from 1 year ago now appears. I do remember posting it. I'm glad for the reminder, and I'm pleased to share it with you. I miss the rain down in Africa by Toto. I really like that. All right, I wish it weren't so, but as I continue to discover new info about glyphosate, and as we've said, that is the active ingredient in Roundup, things get worse. So, a quick recap for those that haven't seen the last couple of shows, and then the new stuff. The recap. A Monsanto scientist discovered glyphosate in 1970. It's the chemical that kills plants when herbicides like Roundup are sprayed on the leaves. It interferes with the plant's production of necessary enzyme. Plants die. Now, Monsanto also has patents on, I don't know, a bajillion varieties of GMO foods, genetically modified foods, plants like corn and potatoes and on and on. The terrible, dangerous genetic modification, these plants are resistant to glyphosate, so when sprayed they don't die. Full disclosure, in the past, being ignorant, I've used Roundup. Now, naive or not, I was very careful not to put it on my wanted plants. I didn't want my tomatoes to die. But if the food plant is resistant, they needn't be careful. They just spray it everywhere, by airplane, and while the food plant doesn't die, the glyphosate gets into it. Is it any wonder then that Monsanto sees this equation as a veritable printing press for billions of dollars? Trillions maybe. They sell you the seeds for the GMO crops, immune to the herbicide, and then they sell you the herbicide. So, no surprise then, glyphosate has shown up in foods. Baby food, snacks, Starbucks coffee. Huh? Coffee? Well, maybe not the coffee, but those fancy lattes use dairy and cows fed with GMO corn. Get it? Oh, and tender corn-fed beef. So maybe in that steak you had last night, or the pizza, it's sprayed on wheat, or that chicken cordon bleu. Unless free-range and organically produced, chickens are fed cornmeal. So, more recap. Just last month, the World Health Organization called glyphosate a probable carcinogen. Now, Monsanto called for a retraction. I'm shocked.
How can you close me up? On what ground?
I'm shocked to find that gambling is going on in here.
You're winning, sir.
Oh, thank you very much.
All right, so they've certainly got cojones. Now for some new. Monsanto says the science is bad. Not a surprise, but here's an interesting thing. In a public meeting, he may have forgot it was public, but Monsanto's Dr. Bill Moore was asked what the company was doing to counter what Monsanto calls these quote-unquote bad science claims. Dr. Moore said they had an entire department dedicated just to debunking the science when it disagreed with their own position. All right, this is why that's troubling, not specific to Monsanto, but this is interesting. A few years ago, a meta-study found that something like 80% of the time, scientific studies' conclusions were exactly the outcome the funding entity would have hoped for, and that only independent studies could be relied on. All right, that is to say, the meta-study found, after studying studies, the organization that pays for it, about 80% of the time, is going to be very pleased with the result. 80% of the time. All right, so let's weigh things here. The World Health Organization's raison d'etre is World Health. Monsanto's is to make money. Which to choose? Well, don't companies tell the truth? Yeah, sometimes. Enron was producing electricity for California residents at the lowest possible cost, they said. Their control over the grid created efficiencies, they said. Until, whoops, not only did emails and voice recordings show that to be untrue, but they also revealed the traders were laughing. laughing at the hardships they'd caused. Little old California ladies saw their electric bills skyrocket 200-300%. They couldn't afford it. And these sons of bitches laughed. Oh, does anyone not remember that studies paid for by tobacco companies found that tobacco use was safe? And when that wouldn't fly anymore, they protested that, well, maybe it's not safe, but it's not addictive. The big tobacco company CEOs each testified under oath before Congress that they didn't believe it to be addictive. Another oops. Memos found that they'd been fiddling for years with the formulae and recipes to make it more addictive. All right, back to Monsanto. This is a company that has also developed proven or likely carcinogens like saccharin, Agent Orange, PCBs, DDT, aspartame. This isn't just a dirty company, they are dangerous. And Kansas Congressman Mike Pompeo introduces the DARK Act. In committee, he heard lots of testimony that GMO foods are safe. A stacked deck? Well, there are many experts who would testify the opposite, that they are not safe, but they weren't asked. I think it's clear that Congressman Pomposo wants to make it impossible for you to know what you're eating or drinking or whether GMOs make up any part of the product. Also new from earlier this week, Dr. Stephanie Seneff, a research biologist at MIT. I've heard of that. I think that's a pretty good school. She points to GMOs as a major contributor to developmental diseases in children. She's not a newcomer. She's published over 170 peer-reviewed articles and has studied this for over 3 decades. She found that symptoms of glyphosate toxicity closely resemble that of autism. Autism is a rapidly exploding, neurological disease. It currently affects about 1 in 68 children. But seeing its rise with the use of glyphosate, she now predicts that by 2025, that's just 10 years, the incidence will grow to 50%. 10 years from now. Now do I have your attention? She goes on to say that glyphosate has been found in the blood and urine of pregnant women. It's also been found in fetal cells. Autism, she predicts. What if she's a little bit wrong? She predicts autism goes from 1 in 68 to 1 out of 2. The World Health Organization calls glyphosate a probable carcinogen. And this congressman wants to deny you even being able to know what's in your food. Do you even care? I don't. I've got no reason to. I've got no kids, and frankly, I have no pragmatic reason to care about your kids or your grandkids. Except for the fact that I believe we're all here. Humanity is here, and we're all in it together. Like marriage, it's for better or worse. You can't divorce yourself away from the planet. As astronaut Wally Schirra once said, I've been up there, believe me, there is nowhere else to go. So I do care. Here's another way to look at it. Here in the United States, in your lifetime, you've got about a 40% chance of getting cancer, some type. It includes all types. Your chance of dying from that cancer is roughly half of that. Now, it's higher or lower by sex and type, but overall, those figures are about right. You probably know cancer is a terrible disease. It's incredibly painful. It's enormously expensive to treat. The treatment itself is often excruciating. Going bald is the easy part. Some broad brush math. Right now there are close to 320 million people in this country. If the incidence of cancer does not change, 40% of your most precious children and grandchildren, those treasures for whom you'd gladly die, 1,000 or more painful deaths, 40% of them will get cancer. And roughly half of them will die because of it. Over 67 million of us will get cancer. Over 33 million will die from it if the rate doesn't go up. Here's another viewpoint. Almost 60,000 Americans died in Vietnam. In the war on terror so far, Afghanistan and Iraq, over 6,700. Over 400,000 Americans died in World War II. In fact, from 1775 to present day, the U.S. has lost over 1,300,000 in wartime. 1,300,000. Just under 3,000 died in the 9/11 attacks, and we were outraged. Hitler murdered over 6 million in the concentration camps. Over 33 million of us will die from cancer if the rate doesn't go up. And as I said a few weeks back, 100 years ago, medical books didn't focus much on cancer. Cancer is cell mutation, and mutations are fundament of cancer. That's what cancer is. And we know what causes mutations most of the time. It's the environment, the stuff we eat, wear, and breathe. I've got no kids, and I'm mad. But if you do have kids, then get mad. Go to justlabelIt.org. Find out about this. You'll get mad. Get mad. Get livid. Get up. Get out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it and shout, "I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. My life has meaning. My children's lives have meaning." Do it figuratively. Tell your neighbors. Tell your family. Tell your relatives. Tell your co-workers. Sign the petition. And yes, share this video. Help it go viral. Call your representatives. Call your senators and tell them, "I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore." Thank you, Howard Beale. All right, we've had some warm weather for several days, but then midweek it turned chilly and wet and rainy, and that's the clash of air masses called spring. Of course, this was when the weather is most dangerous. Over the Midwest and the Plain States, tornadoes form as a result of those clashing air masses. Here in the Carolinas, we're not in Tornado Alley. Sometimes we get some. Tuesday night, I only heard rain, but just 20 minutes away, it must have been stronger because a friend lost her electricity. Or maybe a car hit a pole. But cars and poles and clashing air masses aside, hackers have now revealed that electricity outages may be caused by a new phenomenon: genetically modified high-tension wires. All right, this doesn't rise to the level of rant. In fact, it's funny. But I am rather annoyed by it. It's a grammar mistake, and it is annoying. Understand, I'm not the grammar police. For one thing, I'm not qualified to be, and for another, there are plenty of common errors I'm as guilty of as anyone. So why was your golf game so bad today? Oh, there's lots of reasons. Reasons being plural, I should have said not there's, but there are. Not there is, but there are a lot of reasons. Anyway, this mistake I'm alluding to is almost invariably made by individuals with higher education. Now, it's hard to imagine that they forgot what we all learned in, I don't know, 3rd grade, 5th grade. So instead, my conclusion is they're showing off. You can call them snobs if you like, but the joke is they're wrong. Wrong. Case closed. Versus an. Simple. Use before a consonant. Grape, cheeseburger. Very loud clap of thunder. Use an before a vowel. An apple. An overripe melon. An aroma. Sweet. We all know this, and we also learn that it wasn't actually the letter, but the sound of the letter. Honor begins with a consonant H, but because in honor the H is silent, it should be preceded by an. Thank you. It's quite an honor to be here. Now, what's annoying is that over the last couple of decades, it's become somewhat fashionable to flaunt one's erudition by saying things like, "It's an historic day," or "It presents an unique opportunity," except in unique, it's a Y sound, as in going to a yard sale. Honestly, unless one is in Great Britain, it's purely an affectation. Well, since you ask, I'm a history major, versus, well, Governor, since you ask, I'm a history major. Historic is not a silent H, except maybe in Great Britain. Earlier this week, I received a newsletter from an educated man who wrote, California is experiencing an historic drought. I've heard him speak. He's not British. I would love to ask him if he's ever been in a saddle up on an horse. Some years ago, the TV series, The West Wing's fictional character Josh Lyman said something was an unique experience or something like that. And making it funnier, his next line was, see, did you see how I used correct grammar? Which, really, that's strange. I'm not sure if it was an inside joke or the deliberate creation of a small flaw to the character of Josh, because the West Wing's writing was almost always flawless. And by the way, well, this has been a long time annoyance. I recognize that I'm fallible, so I verified all that I just said. I checked with some English grammarians, and I looked in a grammar book, and I went online checking with Purdue University, which referenced the Associated Press style book, long the go-to authority.
Hey, let me tell you about my book, Shrink. For most of my adult life, I weighed a little over 100 pounds, not much more than in this picture taken when I was about 17 and considering becoming a jockey. But as is often true, once I crossed into my 40s, extra weight came, and it stayed. For years, I tried to lose, instead gained, and ended up 153 pounds. And I'm embarrassed to show you this video. Then I learned that it isn't about calories and exercise, but instead it's about what you eat. You might say, sure, ice cream makes you fat. But there were surprises, things like orange juice not being such a wise choice if you're trying to lose weight. So I just made some basic changes to what I ate, not how much, and the weight just fell off. Now, nearly 3 years later, it is still off. And don't misunderstand, I'm eating foods I like, not bamboo shoots. Friends ask me how I did it so often, I put it in a book. It's available as an ebook for all platforms, and the print edition is available at barnesandnoble.com and amazon.com. Hey, you can shrink too.
Welcome back. Remember, our Facebook page is The Bruce Channel. You can also go to tinyurl.com/Bruce Channel, and you can write us on anything. Suggest topics at thebrucechannel@yahoo.com. All right, I told you last week that the week before I'd been in Atlanta, but I wasn't actually in Atlanta. I was in Duluth. And when I lived there, that was kind of out there. Well, Atlanta keeps building and building, and things change. I actually think that were I placed within a half hour of where I used to live, if I didn't have GPS and was challenged to find my home within 2 hours, in fact, if you bribed me and said, if you do it, you can have $10,000, I still don't think I could have. And they have developed some very weird road architecture when I first arrived there. I was a sand wedge away from my hotel. And despite that, it took another 20 minutes to get there, despite my GPS. One culprit was a uniquely sadistic monster. The overpass was over I-85. Now, look at this map. Normally, traffic moves along the right side of the road. It's a typical 7-lane highway, 3 each way, center reserved for left turns. But look at the overpass. For reasons God himself probably couldn't discern, traffic then slides to the opposite side. So, trying to get to my hotel, I felt like the Griswolds.
Hey, look, kids. There's Big Ben and there's Parliament.
When a man loves a woman, can't keep his mind on nothing. He'll change the world for the good things found.
Ah, yes, that's the golden voice. The golden voice of Percy Sledge. And he died this past Tuesday at the age of 74 of liver cancer. Now, just 2 days earlier, Sunday, I'm watching the Masters mid-afternoon. My Facebook timeline beeped. I looked over and saw this. You may have too. My Facebook page, the shocking news that Willie Nelson had passed away. Now later, while on the phone with a friend, I told him the news, and he hadn't heard it. He too was surprised. Now, I've seen that thing before on Facebook, when Robin Williams died, when Dean Smith died, but this was the first time in my experience the news was a hoax. I'm certainly glad that it was. Apparently it came from MSNBC. I said MSNBC. And it's a fake news website. It sort of sounds like MSNBC, but Willie is okay. Willie is also iconic, and Willie is also 81, so too late for Piercy, but I think we should give Willie Nelson, great entertainer, wonderful songwriter. I mean, he wrote Crazy. I think we should give him a fan's thanks. If you agree, send your thanks to Willie Nelson, 12400, State Highway 71 West, Austin, Texas, 78738. Okay, so that's it. Find out about GMO labeling. Get mad. Do something about it. And make this week the best you've ever had.